We had just moved into our new home. It wasn't a mansion, but to us, it felt like everything we had worked for finally paid off. A little peace. A little privacy. A place to breathe. My wife, Emily, always dreamed of a quiet neighborhood with sidewalks for morning walks and a backyard where she could read in peace. At first, it was exactly that. The neighbors were polite, the sun hit just right in the mornings, and our little garden started to bloom. But we didn't know that hidden behind one of those neatly trimmed hedges was Karen, the head of the homeowners association. She didn't smile when we moved in. In fact, she didn't even introduce herself. We only knew her through the letter we received 3 days after moving. A complaint. About a recycling bin left out 2 hours past pickup time. Then another letter. About improper yard maintenance, even though I'd mowed the lawn twice that week. It felt targeted. She paced up and down the street like a warden, always watching. One day, it was the way Emily parked. Another, the unapproved curtain color in our guest room window. It went on and on. But the final straw came when Emily returned late from work one rainy night. She wore her black Federal windbreaker, soaked and tired. As she stepped out of her car, Karen stormed out with a flashlight and cell phone. "I'm calling security." "You look suspicious," she snapped. Emily didn't respond. She just walked past her and went inside. I was furious. I asked Emily why she didn't say anything, why she didn't just tell her who she was. But she simply looked at me and said, "If I have to tell her to be respected, then her respect doesn't matter." There was pain in her voice, but also a quiet strength. I didn't realize then that everything was about to change, not just for us, but for the whole neighborhood. 2 weeks later, we received an official summons. The HOA was holding a special hearing regarding our repeated non-compliance with community standards. The notice, written in bold red letters, cited parking violations, property neglect, noise complaints, all fabricated. Emily looked at the paper and simply said, "Let's go." I could barely hide my frustration, but she remained calm, composed. The meeting was held in a small community center down the street. As we entered, the room was already full. Neighbors sat in folding chairs, murmuring. Karen stood proudly at the front, flipping through a binder filled with printed photos of our house, our car, even Emily's jacket. She began to speak before we could even sit. "These people have been a disturbance since day one," she announced. "They disregard our rules. They don't belong here." My fists clenched. I wanted to scream. But Emily just stood up, walked forward, and placed her bag gently on the table. "May I speak?" she asked. The room fell silent. She opened her bag and pulled out her ID. Not a driver's license. Not a work badge. But an official FBI identification card, along with federal credentials and clearance documents. Karen leaned forward to read it and stumbled backward. The silence was heavy. Someone in the back gasped. Emily then spoke, her voice calm but powerful. "I've served this country for over 20 years. I've led national security operations. I've worked undercover to stop terrorist threats. While I was protecting your freedom, I was being accused of having the wrong curtains." She paused. Her eyes scanned the room. "I didn't tell you who I was because I shouldn't have to. Respect isn't earned by titles. It's earned by humanity." The weight of her words filled the room. Karen, suddenly pale, stepped back and sat down without saying a word. For the first time since we moved in, no one looked at Emily with suspicion. They looked at her with awe. 3 days later, while Emily was in the kitchen making tea, there was a soft knock at the door. I opened it and there stood Karen. But she didn't look like the woman who had once barked at us for trash bins and parking angles. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes red. She held a small container of cookies in shaking hands. "Can I speak with her?" she asked quietly. Emily came to the door, and before Karen could even start, tears began to stream down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know. I judged you. I assumed the worst. I've been so angry since my husband died 3 years ago. He was a military man. A proud one. But when he passed, I needed to feel in control of something. So I took it out on others. On you." She paused, her voice trembling. "But seeing who you are, what you've done, and how you handled me with such grace, you reminded me of him. Of the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout." Emily gently invited her inside. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the tension slowly dissolving into something softer. Karen spoke for a long time. About her loneliness, her guilt, her regret. Emily listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't scold. She just listened. At the end of it, Karen said something I'll never forget. "I thought I was the authority around here. But you showed me that real authority comes from compassion." Emily smiled and reached for her hand. "We all carry pain," she said. "But we don't have to carry it alone." In that moment, something broke open. Not just between them, but within Karen herself. It was the beginning of healing, and it started with an apology. The months that followed were unlike anything we could have imagined. Karen resigned from the HOA board and personally asked the community to vote for new members, people who believed in community, not control. Emily, despite her busy federal schedule, volunteered to help set up a neighborhood safety program. Karen joined her. Together, they organized food drives, veteran support nights, and even a block party for the first time in 10 years. Neighbors who once kept their heads down began to wave, talk, laugh together. Karen, who once used her position to punish, now used her time to serve. One day, at a community meeting, Karen stood and addressed the crowd. "I made mistakes," she said. "I forgot that behind every door is a story I haven't heard. But thanks to one woman's kindness, I'm learning again." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Emily never talked about her title again. She didn't need to. People knew her by her presence, her actions, her quiet courage. And Karen, she changed. Truly changed. She became the neighbor who left flowers at your door when you were sick. The one who helped a single mom fix her mailbox. The one who finally understood that authority isn't about rules. It's about respect, empathy, and humility. The same porch where Karen once shouted accusations became the place where she shared coffee with Emily every Saturday morning. And every time I looked out and saw them smiling, I was reminded that one act of grace can turn an enemy into a friend, and one heart open wide can change an entire street.